All right, so how many, okay, so let me ask you the other way. How many of you have not played with this? This is brand new, I've not played with this. Oh, that's true, okay, 1 or 2 of you. So you need to go play with this. This is the best interface for working with AI, with large language models. It's just chat.openai.com. You can get a free account. If you want it to go faster, you can pay about $20 a month to Sam Altman.
When you say it's the best interface for playing with large language models, are you talking about GPT-4 or 3?
That's a good question. So you notice up here on the top, I'm using GPT. I'm actually going to be showing you guys exclusively stuff with GPT 3.5. So this is what everybody gets. And then this is what people that are paying money or very lucky get to have. This is the GPT-4. But you get plugins with this. Okay, it's actually, you have that search bar.
I haven't played with 4, but I've been doing side-by-side comparisons over and over between 3.5 and Bard wins every time for me.
Interesting.
But people who are paying, I'm comparing free to free. People who are paying, they're all saying, oh, 4 is amazing with the plugins and everything.
I need to play with Bard.
Yeah.
So because the GPT-4 that gets this this Bing browser over here on the right. This is one of their. This will be their incentive to get you guys to work with Microsoft Edge instead of Chrome. You get this for free. You sign in with your Microsoft account. You start playing with this. I believe that's going to be the easiest, cheapest way to play with the more advanced models. But let's start with GPT-3. So GPT 3.5. So my path that I'm going to go through here is, let me show you a typical scenario. As you guys are playing with GPT 3.5, how many of you come up with one or more prompts? You think you've got some really good prompt that you might reuse for other tasks? How many of you come up with a prompt? I'm going to use this later. It was actually useful. So that's kind of the unit of, I don't even know what to call it. Is it a function? Is it a core, a component? Is it a directive? It's an input. That prompt is an input to the large language models and gets back a result. And once you have that, then now you have the basis to go build a large language model, an application based on the large language model. Let me think about timing. So right now we started like 6:45. How long do we go to today?
As long as it takes for you to tell us all the secrets.
I'm not going to do that. So
All the secrets.
All the secrets.
all the secrets.
We don't just want someday. We want to know.
All right.
My wife said it's okay, so.
Oh, I like that. That's a good check. That's a good check.
You guys can stay late. I've got a lot of resources here. I will talk about those because I think showing that other people, following the path that worked for other people is the best way to start. And I want you to copy. I'll show you the guys that I've copied, and then modify, and then build in parallel. So hey, they're showing me they built an app that does this. I'm going to build an app kind of side to the side of what they're doing that kind of follows the same thing, but is my own implementation. So then you start learning how to not just mimic, but then how to extrapolate, how to turn that into another functionality altogether. So I imagine a scenario where, and I think I'll share this. If you find me on so GitHub, if you look at Dave007, you'll see a lot of repos. I'm not really a developer. I'm not making code. I'm copying other people's code to teach it. A lot of Azure, all of the training material for Azure is just public. Most of the tools that I use, PowerShell, and CLI, it's all public and open source. So I just copy it and look at it and understand it so I can use it. So I made a LangChain talk, but this is actually not there. You're actually going to go to the wiki once you go to this thing to see, and I'm just putting in Markdown. I'm trying to use Markdown these days to try to, as my notes and I'm organizing, seems to be like a right balance of easy to use but also presentable, right? So I don't want to, I'm not big with fancy graphics and stuff, but one of the things you'll see over here, I'm going to go to resources here. So in the end, the stuff that I'm using, I'm finding these people to be invaluable to learn. And I started off just watching them, and then I started copying them, okay? And then I started basing what I was doing on what they're doing and improvising. And then there's a lot of resources around LangChain that I'm referring to down here, including, actually I didn't show this here. Here's the actual repository for LangChain. Okay, so it's all out there, everything's open, nothing's gonna be hidden. All right, so imagine that you're using ChatGPT, and most of you are, and you come to the point, right, in this case I was using it to help me to do a book report with my kids, and I want to help them figure out, you know, for a given area of science, what would be a notable person in that area of science, like asking GPT. So hey, here's some science, I'm doing a book report. You're my book report research assistant, so I'm going to provide a field of science, and you're going to answer me with a list of scientists, their full name, and then I tweak this. This is my first iteration. I ended up tweaking this many, many times. That was my prompt. And then I told, hey, I'm interested in scientists that know about quantum physics. So, and then it comes back with this result. So I'll jump ahead. So I got to the point where I could tell it to, hey, this is great, give me in bullet points, hey, give it to me in JSON. I'm just kind of having fun with, you know, what this can do.
Wait, you asked for some details and then told it, give it to me in JSON?
Yeah, that's right.
And did you give the schema?
No, it just takes that,
Different details,
yeah.
guesses?
so where did I do that first?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it just makes intuitive guesses on the key name that are they always
It
make
just
sense.
put sample APIs out of business.
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah.
Jesus.
This is gonna be-
That's how I was making all my money.
Yeah,
It's what I do, sample API.
yeah.
But sample API is just like hit the sample API then.
That's
Now I
it.
have to ask.
So you can charge less, or you can provide the same result in like
Charge less, I'm charging $0 right now.
I know, you gotta charge less, David.
Less than, it's just,
Pay me to use it.
yeah.
You'll do it faster.
Makes sense, that makes sense.
Right, so oh yeah, all sorts of things. You can get it back in Markdown. You can have a lot of fun with it. And then with the plugins, when you go to ChatGPT 4, you can give it files. You can have it give you back files. There's lots of things. So I'll just jump ahead to the point where I said, hey, I got to the end. I think this is the kind of information I want. Could you please reply with a complete prompt so I can use this to get these results again in the future? So I've done all this work. Can you just give me a prompt that I can give to you now that I've done all this work so that I can come back to this point later? Right? So the prompt, how many people want to be a prompt engineer?
Yeah.
Well, you have to spell it.
Okay.
You have to spell that? What?
Prompt engineering.
Yeah, you have to know how to ask the questions.
Oh, I thought you said you have to spell that. I don't know how to spell that. I don't know how to spell the current job I have.
Engineer.
If you want to learn
How to
how
spell it?
you know how to ask the question.
You can read my writing. It's a whole new thing. So it's kind of like an AI whisperer, like you're talking to this machine and you're trying to tweak and get it to give you just what you want. It's back and forth, it's a conversation. It'll be different for different language models, it'll be different for different projects. You know, maybe it works great for 3.5 and it takes it up and you're using 4, or maybe it works better for BART, or you know, there's all these language models. And they're going to need people to come up with these prompts. So let's say we've got that prompt, and now it's time to build an application. This is the beginning of my application, is that prompt. And so until I have this, I grab it. And I'm going to take that prompt. But what I like about this is that, hey, you know what? I asked ChatGPT and have this conversation, but I'd like to be able to reuse this. I'd like to be able to give it different areas of science and have it give me the top scientists in those areas. So I could reuse this later. So maybe I can make like an application and I give it a different area and it gives me the different result back. Or maybe I'm going to tell it, hey, I'd like to get different types of information. Maybe I want to get things like, maybe in the future I'll do like a link to their book on Amazon, or you know, search them up, show me their Wikipedia page, or things like that. That's down the road. That's not, I won't be able to do that today. But it's the beginning of an application. All right, so then what do I do? All right, so I was looking at how to build with LangChain. And in addition to this, let's go back to here. Where did I put my...
You guys try to do like what I'm doing right now and whisper if you're going to talk to somebody else.
I'm not whispering. Thank you. Shoot.
I look like an idiot.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so any questions? Any questions while I'm going through this? Just interrupt. Go ahead.
You mentioned expert with JSON, and yes, I'm using also expert with JSON, but we just wrote interesting subject, which is sometimes OpenAI generates JSON in different formats. Every time you run request, you even can provide example and still it fluctuates a little bit. And then you brought schema. I never tried applying schema or asking, use this JSON schema and make sure that your output is enforced by this schema. Have you tried?
Yeah, so if I was gonna do that, I would use, I didn't do that this time, but you're gonna use the few shot, there's a one shot, where you say, here's my question, give me the answer. Then there's a few shot, I forget what it's called, few shot query, few shot something. I'll look at, I'll see the page. So you say, hey, here's what I would ask you, here's an example of what a question I would have, here's the example of the output. Here's another question I'm gonna answer, here's the output I would want. You give it a few different examples. And then you ask it after you've given it a few examples, and then it's a lot more stable in the format that it responds. A few shots template.
Is this applicable
Learning a
for
lot of things
API
at the
or for GUI?
Say that again?
Is this applicable for API?
For LangChain, yeah, you could use it. Yeah, you can use it against LangChain. So your LangChain is a REST API. Yeah, go ahead.
So you came to a point where your request is to create a prompt for you. So given the prompt, if you take that prompt out into a new chat, will it generate the same result? Because
Never the same, unless you do the temperature zero. That temperature zero would make it the same.
yeah, because usually what I see is that as soon as I create something and I want to reuse that, I have to give the same chat, continue with the same chat, so it remembers what was written before.
Yes. So, and I don't know if there's what the current, what the thing of immutability would be for a language model. There should be like a reproducibility guarantee in a language model. And the closest, we don't have that, the closest thing you have is temperature. So you set, when you define your interface to the equals 0, it's going to be stable, right? And then 1 is going to be creative, like completely bizarro stuff, you know, hallucination. It'll make crazy stuff up. And then if you look at this Bing chat here, they actually give you these 3 different things. So basically, this is temperature 1, this is temperature 0, this is 0.5 probably, unless they're tweaking that a little. So that's the closest thing you'll get to reproducible. So the folks, and again, in my links and my resources, I was watching several different YouTube people talking about their names. So Sam, I think his name is Witteveen, I'm not sure I'm saying it right. So this, what I did here, is based on his just LangChain basics. So you can go and get this and step through, watch the guy on YouTube, and then you're stepping through doing the code that he's doing. And then you say, all right, it's time for me to get creative, I'm not copying this guy anymore. And then you're able to open up your own notebook on Colab. So how many of you have used this Colab site on Google? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is the coolest thing to learn that I've seen in a long time.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. What are you using with it?
We've been, actually Damien introduced me to it. I showed him Jupyter notebooks, and then he showed me how you can build right here, and I love that you can, I do a lot of Python and data analytics in it.
Yes.
And
AI.
the magic is you can share it.
Yeah.
You know, instead of GitHub, they can instantly go and say, yeah, let me start it, and then they have a copy of their own. Like they can clone it instantly. That's
Yes.
just
I
magic.
think Colab is good for prototyping because you don't have to build your own environment. You can just say, okay, bring me this modules, these packages. You can throw it all, and then after you finish, you don't have to worry because it will work it out automatically. So if you like the code, you can take these snippets, bring it into your project. That's prototyping is great.
Yes, that's good. This is good. So let's say that ChatGPT, this is just exploration at this level. You're just figuring out what's possible, right? And then with the Colab notebooks, and it's just 1B, or 1L rather, that is for the prototyping, or the getting it to work. let's say, I'm gonna call it, and I'm coming up with this as I go. I'm gonna say backend. On the code that talks to the API and gets back the results, right? And then sneak preview here, and I'm actually exploring here. So I'm using Chainlit, but I also really like, and I'm gonna put it here because there's actually an example I'll show you there in my resources. Streamlit to do the UI prototyping. So I guess let's say prototyping UI. Prototyping UI. Right. So yeah, this is free to pick up, and if you need bigger, beefier RAM and CPU, or you use it a whole lot, you can pay them, and you have an organization that has so much resources, and then they create projects, and they invite the users to the projects. Any Google Cloud people that have deployed things to Google Cloud, the GKE
Daily.
yeah, a couple of you. So I'm a noob with it. I'm good at Azure, and so I'm mapping what I learned to here. So Azure has code spaces. I'll show you that later. I'm using this. This is so much easier. The friction is almost nothing to get in here and start using this. So again, I copied this guy's LangChain basics with Collab notebooks. I'm giving him full attribution here. It's all on YouTube, but I made changes to it. So in order to start working with this, I'm going to install. This is a command. This exclamation. Let's just say basically run this command in the terminal behind this notebook. So this goes and installs the Python libraries that I need. Okay, and there's this. You start using, you have to get an open API key. So anybody that's using ChatGPT, you can go into the API section. You go to your account. There's a place to create keys, and you create keys, and you can use them in your application. If you save a file to a Git repository that has your key in it, their security settings will recognize it and will go in and validate your key immediately.
Wow.
And it'll send you an email message, hey, you screwed up. There's a GitHub that has this, I forget the security service. You never want to save your code with these keys. So, and you have to go in here and edit it, put the key in, run, and then you work with the code, you run it with this button, and then the output or any errors will show up behind each of these code blocks. So a notebook has code, and it has text, HTML, and it has results. So I did some research. Instead of putting the key in my code, I have found this library that will prompt the user. I'm going to paste in the key instead. So I'm happier with that as the approach. So I would, again, this is in my link. So you can just copy this and do the same thing. But this way I know I have not shared my key. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to get burned with that. Teaching people about security and using, we can't be doing stupid stuff. And with that, so anybody heard of like pasting code and then somebody's like AWS account gets hacked because they put the AWS account in the code, right? So, I mean, this is AI. I mean, what could happen if I let somebody else get my AI key? I don't know what will happen. So yeah, be careful with that. Now, this is the code that's going to take me to do this for the first time. Actually, let me zoom in a little bit. This is too small still. I hate looking at tiny code. It's too much. It's hard enough without having to squint. Any other questions before I zoom in on this? All right, so Python. I'm not a Python guy, but I like it so far. It's really easy to use. There's tons of support. There's all sorts of free resources to learn it. There's all sorts of free places to run it. It's everywhere that you want to be. It's like Visa, where does that think? We're everywhere you want to be. It's that.
That's it.
MasterCard, what was that?
I think it's AI.
No,
That's
it's
AI's logo.
No,
That's what I asked ChatGPT. That's what it told me. That's my logo.
it is
Must be
everywhere.
right.
It's going to be on all of our hardware. So it's coming. So this is all I need to do. So basically, and I'll get into the documentation here in a minute. I'll go look this up. But there's an OpenAI wrapper. So there's other ways to use different language models. Everything about using OpenAI's language models is like first class. You can tell when you start working with other language models, these things are behind in the support and in the attention. All the attention is around this, or the majority of the attention. But these language models that they have that are competing, the open source model, different open source model. What was the one you got running on your tablet? You got a little tiny.
So you caught me. It's a new one from Google. But it's the Q&A one.
Flan or something?
It is Flan, yes.
Yeah.
Flan 7B.
So this one is, you're not gonna be able to run this on your own because they don't share it. But you can talk to their API and you can pass in the name of the model you want to use. And then this is the one I was using. I used a couple different ones. But this, yeah, I pass in when I instantiate it and with Google, or sorry, not Google, with Colab. When I put a comma in here, so you've got like this IntelliSense. So as you're working with this thing, it goes and inspects the libraries. And you can actually, one of these options here will actually just show you the code. I can go and look at the code for the definition of this.
Go ahead.
I forget how to get there.
Man,
Yeah.
control
Control click on the method. Yeah.
There it is.
Control click.
Yeah, view source or open tab.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
if you went over it, yeah, like Todd
I
said.
think I got out of that mode. Let me go back.
Ooh,
How did I get there?
I know. Oh, control. There we
Yeah,
go.
there it is. So if I go to view, I can go, it'll open it on the side.
Oh my.
Here's a description of it. And then, that's not very good, but I guess that's like the description or some metadata. And then here's the goods here. If I go,
There we go.
come on, view source. Right, so here's how if you want to know how to write a wrapper around a large language model. Now, I don't know how this stuff, I'm not, this is deeper than I can go.
It's
At my
like
level.
80% comments. Well, because it's Python, everything is like one line of code in Python, right?
Yeah.
Do 500 things, it's one line of code.
It's no longer to describe it.
It's there. It's there for us to explore, which I love. I love that they're opening all this up. And again, that repository that's in the resources, this guy shared this H.W. Chase guy is the primary developer of LangChain. So you can get this, and he's got 5,500 forks, he's got 47,000 stars, right? So there's,
Who needs that many forks?
he's got a lot of attention.
What is this guy eating?
It's like, and that, think about how quickly it went with this. I mean, what was it, like December or something? When did this start?
Yeah.
November is when ChatGPT was released.
And when, so yeah, and
The
this can't.
3 when it was announced.
Yeah, early November, like November 7th, I think, was when
Blew
ChatGPT
up.
3 became public.
So there was something about the number of users, the first, how many years it took to get the first 1 million users of this app, and then how many get the first Facebook users, and then like it was like months, right, to get this one. I think I have that. Oh, I was originally going to do my presentation, lots of information and slides and information from this website and that site. I just got way too wide in scope. I was talking about, hey, you guys need to know everything. I restarted it over a couple days ago. I'm just focusing in on coding, but somewhere here I have that slide. And the adoption rate is just bonkers, the amount of people that are using this. So this is a wave to ride on. It's a bit of a tangent. At the end of 2019, I was doing okay. I have SQL knowledge and PowerShell knowledge, and I'm 49 years old and in IT. I'm doing okay, but I didn't have any cloud experience other than like dabbling with some side projects, and went all in on that. And it was like a really intense. It was fun. A lot of getting up early and staying up late, and like a year and a half after I started that, I had a rhythm where I was able to keep up with technology and be able to teach classes, and was able to keep up without stressing, and able to learn and keep up. And that now I'm on this Azure wave, right? I'm on the cloud wave now. So I don't have to struggle. If I do, I can make a lot of money. I have enough confidence now, I know it, that I'm going to be okay, and I've got lots of options, right? So, hey, Dave, you have this certification. Can we hire you to be our guy for systems admin, or it's not my job that I want it, but I have that option if I need to. It's nice to have options. So if you learn a technology like this, you're making a bet that the marketplace is going to want you so much that you're going to pay you a lot, and that you're going to enjoy that work, and it's going to go on for a long time relative to other technologies. So if you think this is a good bet in those factors, then maybe this is something you want to learn and focus on, or at least have it in your toolbox. All right, so what about technology? So I'm importing this library. I'm instantiating this object, this LLM. This was my large language model. And then I have some text. And let's see, that's the latest dad joke.
Nice. The Scarrow will win the award because he's outselling in this field.
I like that joke. A farmer is a man who's outstanding in his field. I like that joke. I told my kids that joke way too much.
Yeah.
Yes. That's all it takes to use this to talk to the language model. I gave it a prompt, it gave me back a result, okay? I'm in business. Now, there's a lot more that we can do. And, so getting started here in the use cases, a lot of people can just jump in. If you're adept with programming, you can jump in here and start working with this. At LangChain, I just instantiated a large language model, and I started interacting with it, okay? We're gonna get into prompts next. So when you work with LangChain, here's the concept that you're gonna need to understand. We'll do like part 2 later on. We'll talk about memory indexes, chains, agents. Agents are cool. Agents are really neat. So it's an autonomous thing that can go and you give it the ability to talk to the internet and order on Spotify and look things up. And you can there's all sorts of crazy things people are doing with these. But we have the model. We're talking to different LLMs, and I'll focus on OpenAI. But if you click here, you can see all the different models. And now we're going to get into working with prompts and understanding the different things you can do with the prompts and the prompt templates. Few shot example, that's what it was. I was trying to remember what it was. When you ask it a question and you get back the result immediately, you call it single shot, and then the few shot, I said template. So there's the few shot examples. That was the scenario where you might give it a sample question and an answer that you would expect from that. You give it 2 or 3 examples, questions and answers you would expect, and then that trains it to give you the answers the way that you want. Right? So this is all here, and you can jump in and start playing with it. So now that I know that this works, my next thing is, okay, now actually I want to actually use it to do something. So this was, here's actually connecting a different way slightly. I'm using this Text DaVinci 3. This is kind of the most current one. Using this OpenAI. I already did that one.
DaVinci 3 is something you look up. It's a class of language model.
Yeah, that's right. There's
Like where did he find which one to use?
I mean, how did you know to write that?
Well, that's a good question, David. How'd you know to use DaVinci, for example, as a language model?
OpenAI, the API will tell you which one it's using. You can select which one you're using.
In OpenAI,
OpenAI, API, the documentation.
you can choose which model it's used? I thought there was,
Yeah.
it was.
Not choose, but it shows you the list.
Yeah, there's a list over
all
there.
right. I'm going to put it in
Some
there.
have to pay.
Wow.
I'll I'm
You
just
want
gonna
to
have
check
to
out
burn this key.
the AI tool, check out TypingMinds. It's a UI where it actually interface. It's like a UI interface for AI stuff. Really, really cool. It does a lot of the legwork of code asking prompting stuff for you.
I need to do
What was the name?
open API key. I forgot to do this.
You said type mind?
TypingMind.
Oh, typing mind.
It's only on Macs before. It's only on Macs currently, but there's a web version of it as well.
So I'll have to
Also,
burn
the
this key
playbook
later.
is good for the prompt engineering that OpenAI has. If you don't want to like just
So basically I would go to the API and ask it, hey, what are the models you have? So I'm comfortable with PowerShell, there's a PowerShell module for working with OpenAI from Doug Fink. So this is my jam here, working with PowerShell stuff. So this is all the different the models that I could start playing with and working with. And usually I'm just using the model that somebody else was. But yeah, there's GPT-4. This is actually this is like the most common one for the front end, the chat. This is a large language model, and then there's an abstraction. I don't really understand the difference. This is a large language model. This is a chat model, and so I think they're changing or they're improving the
four, so which one was the four?
Yeah, this one is the Turbo is the
GPT-4?
LLM. I can treat it like an LLM, but when I try to pass in, actually, I'll just do it. If I pass in
Yeah,
this,
how are the computers, we can see it on
it gives me an error. So if I use
Turbo.
this one and try to register the model. Where'd my run button go? I
Shift
think it's
enter.
Control Shift Enter. Yeah, it gives me a warning. It doesn't like you're trying to use chat model. This way of initializing no longer supported. Instead, use from thing chat models. So now I got to get into the distinction here, but so I think the idea behind the chat models is they're optimizing for the back and forth and the preserving the state of the chat as you go, as you're using up. Does everybody know what the unit of memory is for a chat model? What it's storing? There's an amount of this keyword. Well, heard it again.
Tokens?
Tokens, yeah.
Did you say tokens?
Parameters, it's close, but the tokens is the amount of basically customization. Basically, as you start a conversation, you're telling it things like, hey, go look at this document, and that takes up some tokens. Hey, here's my question, and every time it remembers your answer, it's using up some of the tokens, and eventually it'll run out.
And sometimes tokens are just a full word, and sometimes it's a combination of words, right?
Yeah, numbers. It's numbers under the covers, and I still
Right,
don't
right,
understand
right.
how that works.
And that's actually how it's playing with, it converts your text to tokens. Then it plays around with the tokens, gives you tokens back, and there's no one that retranslates it back.
And you get tokens back to English words. So and the tokens are optimized for searching and semantics and being able to compare, and it's ideas too. I mean, so like how does this word turn into these numbers? And now I'm comparing that to synonyms and related words. I don't understand how all that's happening. Like, you have like SQL, you can have like a fuzzy search, or you can have like a soundex, you can have like sounds like search. Like those things I looked at, okay, that makes sense. I don't understand how this works. Yeah.
Well, it's actually mimicking closer to how the human brain works. So they're finding like we don't remember, like we don't have like specific facts stored in our brain. We have like understanding of concepts, and all the concepts are meshed together. So like when you think of an actor, you think of the TV show, your favorite TV show that they're in, you think of the sound of their voice, it's actually all stored in one place in your brain. And that's I think that's how these models are starting to work, is more like understanding a concept than like knowing what a specific word means. Because think about words, the meaning of a specific word, especially in English, is so dependent on the context. So it's really the understanding rather than like the word itself. So that's why you have to tokenize it, right? Because they're not, the words are not so meaningful.
I'm curious, so in this case, once one chat log had 256 tokens used, you wouldn't be able to continue on that chat thread?
Yeah.
I think so. Well, at least, I don't know, does it start dropping things?
This number could be.
No, just interrupts and you have to request
Okay,
additional
singular.
activity.
Oh, are you paying for them?
Yeah, you have to pay for chunk of tokens. If you allocate not enough, it will interrupt. Then you have to say continue.
Somewhere where you can
Yes,
still like
still
save
like
it.
that number of tokens.
Wow.
And if you can provide up to 48 tokens in chat.
So you mentioned that before. How many can you put in the chat? How many tokens can you input?
In API, 2048
Max.
max.
10 characters.
240.
So,
2Ks.
I just.
2,000.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, sorry for confusion, 4K.
I knew I didn't need any.
4,000.
You're supposed to get the charge.
So-
So,
4,096,
Yes.
the binary 4,000.
Define it, but max,
Okay.
and you can pick the edge like it was.
There's a max.
And Anthropic is, or they have like a million, it's almost like a million or something crazy like this. Eventually we'll need that, we'll need a large model with a large amount of tokens, but basically that's like, my analogy is like they're giving away virtual machines that have 512 gigs of RAM to people. And every time you instantiate a model and you start using it and you're using those tokens, it has to, somebody has to set aside a server somewhere, and that memory has to be set aside for you, for these tokens to be stored. You know, and then the GPUs to do the backend processing, so that there's a lot of resources that are involved. So they're minimizing this by limiting the number of tokens. That's why it supports so many users. So when I use it like this, by using, for a small amount, I'm being memory efficient with my application. Instead of saying, give me all the memory I can possibly have, I don't need that much. So let's go back to the other one. So I have this one already. So we went to Turbo. Other questions along those lines? This is the old question. So this is the GPT-5 Turbo. This is optimized GPT 3.5, and it's faster. It's using less resources. And notice it's answering differently. As an AI language model, I don't have a favorite adjunct because I'm an AI. I don't have favorites. I don't have opinions about things or something like that. I don't have the ability to feel emotions, I think.
Oh my. I'm sorry, I stepped in the wrong, I didn't hear the rest of the conversation.
So how did you pick the model? Did you read a spec and just say, well, you should use this one in this context?
Yeah, I'm copying what this guy did, but I knew about the examples that I'm using. The Text DaVinci